Dead wood remembers. One log, $2 of spawn, 30 minutes of work. And it produces food for 7 years. The mushroom industry spends $90,000 over 5 years doing what a single log does for free. The ancients called one of these mushrooms the mushroom of immortality. This is the technique they almost erased. The archive opens in the ancient forests of Japan, where Shinto tradition taught that every tree held a spirit, where monks noticed that dead oaks left undisturbed in the shade would erupt with clusters of fragrant mushrooms each autumn. They didn't call it cultivation. They called it a conversation between the living and the dead. For nearly 1,000 years, farmers across China and Japan grew mushrooms on nothing but dead wood and patience. No fertilizer, no pesticide, no electricity, just logs, spawn, shade, and water. In Kyoto Prefecture, there are families who have maintained Shiitake logs for 5 generations. The grandmother, now in her 80s, rises before dawn each autumn to check the logs her own grandmother stacked decades ago. She doesn't call it farming. She calls it listening to the wood. You don't force a mushroom, she says. You wait. The tree knows when it's ready to give. Her grandchildren now carry the same logs to the same shaded hillside. The cycle has never broken. In the 1960s, across rural Japan, families maintained 200 logs or more. They harvested from April through November. Grandfather taught father. Father taught son. Son taught daughter. The logs were never replanted, only replaced when they finally crumbled into soil. And even then, the spent logs became compost. The forest wasted nothing. The log doesn't die, it transforms. The fungus doesn't consume, it translates. And then in less than 30 years, it was nearly gone. But before we trace how it disappeared, you need to understand what mushrooms meant to the ancient world. Because long before anyone called it log cultivation, mushrooms were sacred. In China, the reishi was called lingji, the mushroom of immortality. Emperors sent expeditions to find it. Artists carved it into palace gates as a symbol of eternal life. For over 2,000 years, it sat at the center of traditional Chinese medicine. In ancient India, some scholars believe the sacred soma, the divine drink celebrated in the Rig Veda, may have been derived from a mushroom. In Mesoamerica, indigenous peoples called certain fungi teonanacatl, flesh of the gods, and used them in ceremonies that connected the living to something beyond. Across every continent, across every millennium, fungi were not just food. They were bridges between worlds. After World War II, industrial economics began to reshape how the world grew mushrooms. Indoor facilities, sterilized substrates, plastic bags filled with sawdust. The new method was faster, 6 to 10 weeks instead of 12 to 18 months. It was scalable, it was controllable, and it was profitable for suppliers. But here's what the economics actually tell you, if you calculate it yourself. A small commercial operation using plastic bags spends roughly $90,000 on substrate over 5 years. The same operation using logs? About $2,000 total. The bags produce once and get thrown away. The logs produce for 7 years. Follow the money. Substrate suppliers, equipment manufacturers, spawn companies that sell pre-made bags instead of plugs. They all need you to believe that logs are primitive. By the 1970s, mycology courses across America had stopped teaching log cultivation. Extension services promoted bag methods exclusively. Asian immigrants who still practiced the old technique were told it was outdated, not scalable, not efficient. Wood becomes food. Waste becomes medicine. Death becomes memory. But industry preferred plastic bags. Log cultivation wasn't forgotten. The economics of forgetting were too profitable. But science has a way of circling back to what we buried. In 1997, ecologist Suzanne Simard published a paper in the journal Nature that changed everything we thought we knew about forests. She proved that trees communicate through fungi. Underground mycelium networks connect entire forests, sharing nutrients, sending warning signals, even feeding dying trees. The journal's editors called it the Wood Wide Web. Mycologist Paul Stamets went further. He called mycelium Earth's natural internet, a network older than any human invention. Mycelium can hold many times its own weight in water, acting as the forest's natural sponge. And then there's lion's mane. A 2009 study by Mori and colleagues showed that this mushroom, one you can grow on a log in your own backyard, improved cognitive function in elderly patients. The compound responsible? Nerve growth factor. Reishi, the same mushroom of immortality, revered for 2,000 years, is now being studied by the National Institutes of Health for immune modulation. What the ancients called sacred modern science is calling significant. Every mushroom that fruits from that log is a letter from the tree that used to stand there. The mushroom log in your shade garden is connected to a network more sophisticated than anything we've ever built. The forest doesn't throw anything away. It recycles through fungi. And now so can you. Here is exactly how to start. Step 1. Choose your wood. Hardwoods only. Oak is the gold standard. Maple, beech, birch, and ironwood also work well. Avoid softwoods like pine or cedar. They contain natural fungicides that will kill your spawn. Step 2. Cut when dormant. Late fall, winter, or early spring, when the tree is sleeping and the sap is down. This gives the wood its highest sugar content, which is exactly what mycelium feeds on. Step 3. Size your logs. 3 to 4 feet long, 4 to 8 inches in diameter, small enough to handle, large enough to last. Step 4. Drill your holes. Use a 5/16 inch drill bit, 1 inch deep. Space them in a diamond pattern, about 6 inches apart along the log, with rows staggered. You'll drill 40 to 50 holes per log. Step 5. Insert spawn plugs, 1 plug per hole. Tap it in with a hammer until it sits flush. Spawn plugs cost roughly $2 to $3 per 100. That's less than 3 cents per hole. Step 6. Seal with cheese wax. Melt food-grade cheese wax and brush it over each hole. This keeps moisture in and contaminants out. It's non-toxic and safe to handle. Step 7. Stack in shade. Lean your logs against a fence, a tree, or stack them in a crib pattern. The key? Shade. Direct sun will dry out your logs and kill the mycelium. Step 8. Water weekly. Light misting or natural rain. The goal is to keep the bark damp, not soaked. Step 9. Wait. 12 to 18 months for full colonization. This is where patience pays. The mycelium is threading through every fiber of that log building its network. Step 10. Force the first fruiting. Submerge your log in cold water for 24 hours. This shocks the mycelium into fruiting. Within 5 to 7 days, mushrooms will appear. Step 11. Harvest. Twist and pull. Don't cut. Cutting can damage the mycelium and of the woods. Zones 3 through 7. It needs cold winters. 2 years to colonize, but once it starts, 10 to 20 pounds per flush. $20 to $30 per pound. Reishi, the mushroom of immortality. Zones 4 through 10. 12 to 18 months to colonize, 3 to 5 years of production, and dried reishi sells for $30 to $50 per pound. A quick zone guide. If you're in zones 3 or 4, focus on shiitake with extra care, oyster, and maitake. Zones 5 through 7, all 5 species thrive. This is the sweet spot. Zones 8 and 9, shiitake, oyster, lion's mane, and reishi. Zone 10, oyster and reishi, but shade is critical. Here's your timeline. Year 0, you cut, drill, inoculate, stack, and water. Year 1, the mycelium colonizes. You might get a test fruiting in late fall. Years 2 through 7, full production. 3 to 4 flushes per year. Scale up by adding 50 new logs each year. Year 7 and beyond your oldest, logs begin to crumble. But don't throw them away. Spent mushroom logs make premium compost. And the cycle begins again. Let's do the math. 1 log produces 30 to 60 pounds of mushrooms over 5 to 7 years. At retail prices of $10 to $15 per pound, that's $300 to $900 of value. Per log. Your investment? About 50 cents of spawn and 30 minutes of labor. Scale that to 50 logs. $25 total investment. Potential value over 5 years, $15,000 to $45,000. Now compare that to commercial bag cultivation, where at scale you're spending roughly $90,000 on substrate alone over 5 years, for a product that produces once and gets discarded. In Japan, shiitake grown on logs remains the standard practice, not the exception. The standard. In China, entire regions specialize in log cultivation. Thousands of families. Generations of knowledge still intact. Americans pay $12 to $18 per pound for industrial shiitake. The Japanese grandmother in Kyoto gets hers for free. Mycelium doesn't compete. It connects. It remembers. It feeds. Last fall, a viewer wrote to us. He said his neighbor watched him stack oak logs in the shade. The neighbor laughed. 6 months later, clusters of shiitake erupted from every drill hole. The neighbor stopped laughing. He asked for spawn plugs. In Japan, this is still standard practice. In China, thousands of farmers maintain log operations that have run continuously for decades. In your backyard, you can produce what a commercial facility cannot. Mushrooms grown the way nature intended, on real wood, with real patience, for real nutrition. A few important notes before you begin. Shiitake, oyster, and lion's mane mushrooms are safe for dogs and cats. In fact, lion's mane is sold as a pet supplement for cognitive support. Cheese wax is food grade and completely non-toxic. But here's the one rule you must follow. Only harvest mushrooms that you inoculated. Wild mushrooms can and do grow on outdoor logs. Some are harmless, some are dangerous. If you didn't put it there, don't eat it. If you're a beginner, start with oyster mushrooms. They're the fastest to colonize, the most forgiving of mistakes, and the easiest to identify. Once you're confident, graduate to shiitake. Pro tip? An angle grinder with a 5/16 inch bit is the fastest way to drill. You'll finish 50 logs in an afternoon. What hardwood trees grow near your home? Drop your USDA zone in the comments. The archive is mapping where this ancient knowledge can take root again. If you believe this technique shouldn't stay buried, share this video with someone who has dead trees and an empty garden. That's how knowledge survives. And if this is your first time finding the Green Archive, consider subscribing. We trace the hidden histories of the foods and techniques that shaped civilizations and were nearly erased. The archive closes, but the mycelium beneath your feet is still listening, still connecting, still remembering what we chose to forget. A mushroom is not a product. It is a conversation between death and life, between a fallen tree and a future meal. The knowledge was never truly lost. It was waiting for someone who would listen. If that's you, you know what to do.